Wake up, buyer payer people. It's a beautiful day. Go grab yourself another cup of joe and say hello to Jim and Michelle Rhoads on the Buy Here Pay Here Morning Show. Take it away, you two.
Goodness. Good morning,
Hey,
everybody.
Good morning.
It's like the last hour before it's not morning here.
Right, at least in Utah.
We're starting a couple of hours late. We know that most of our viewers watch the recordings. There was like a massive internet outage all through here. And so it was just like, I don't want to have to try to do it off of a cell signal. We can help it.
Yeah.
So
here we are.
We're
live but late.
Live but live. Yeah.
That's right. So welcome everybody. Happy Monday.
Happy
Just
Monday.
one quick reminder. We have the LHPH conference coming up, the LHPH Summit, as they call it, October 12th through 14th in San Diego. For those contemplating leasing, it's not too late to hop on a plane,
and hello to all
there.
of our friends out there at Marriott too, because today is the big day of all of the conference events. So I hope that they're all having a good time and enjoying each other at Caesar's Palace out in Atlantic City.
Right. Should be a good conference. So so welcome to those tuning in. And I told Michelle we should probably take a little time to introduce ourselves. We never do that. Our intro doesn't really introduce us. And, I'm Jim Rhoads. This is my wife and business partner, Michelle.
Hello.
I think the thing that's important about today is to understand kind of the work that we do in the context of this conversation today. We wanted to talk about, a need to know basis with the team.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the reason it's relevant, kind of the work that we do, is that, we find ourselves in the work that we do with Buy Here, Pay Here dealers, that we do a lot of implementation work. Like we're not the kind of consultants who fly in and spend a couple of days and then fly home. That's just not the nature of our work. We can do that. It's just not the nature of the kind of thing that we typically do. And so we work with clients for many months as part of implementation engagements and kind of taking on the big stuff. And often when we do that, we're not necessarily always telling dealers things they don't know. Sometimes it's things that they know that they need to address, and there's reasons they haven't addressed it up to now. And so we're kind of there just to kind of making sure we stay
How can we help get this taken care of, turn the corner? And just so those of you who are new, the reason that Jim is a subject matter expert on a lot of these things is he's been in the industry for a little over 25 years, and as he was a dealer himself and has worked most of his career in Buy Here, Pay Here as a coach and consultant, and so has seen a lot of dealers coast to coast, and really can draw upon the things that he's been able to see. And the cool thing about it is, the thing that I really honor, respect, is that he's coming from a lot of different dealers and a lot of different business models, and and is taking like, these are the things that work the best that I've seen over and over and over. And these are the things that don't. And these are the things you need to watch out for, which is kind of leads to our topic today, which is a need to know basis.
Right.
And, we deal with a lot of dealers that when we get familiar with their operation, that we've seen a need to have a conversation about some of these things. And these that can be dealers that have been in business for a long time. And, we have some friends that are dealers that have experienced the side of the coin that is detrimental to them and their business of this conversation, where they've had people that have had more ability to see and to know what's happening in the business than is probably the best practice for the dealership for all of the things. I'll let you.
Yeah. So, the reality is, as she said, business models vary, business structures vary, the size of operation, the stage of growth, all that stuff varies from operation to operation. So for today, we're mostly going to talk about those things that are relevant in most operations. And then with some of these, there'll be things that as you grow, they'll become things to certainly consider. And this comes up often. Like it came up as recently as last week with one of our clients, because we created a new report that had some high level information. And as I was issuing the report and sharing it, I ask the dealer very specifically who needs to see this report. Do we want to share this with the executive team at all, or the general manager? And so I'm just always super clear with our clients, like, we report to you. And it's up to you to decide beyond, but we report to you. Our responsibility is to you.
And we will advise, if they say, well, let's make it to everybody. And then Jim will say, okay, so here are the negatives to doing it that way. Sure. And so, obviously positives are, you don't have to try to disseminate information, but there are some pitfalls and things like that.
Yeah. And I wrote the description for today's episode, which Michelle didn't see. And I basically opened it with this idea that some things are easier done than undone.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of, we've all heard that thing about it's easier to train somebody than untrain somebody. And so this is a similar context in that it's easier to put the necessary internal controls and safeguards. And sometimes we're just talking about, it's not necessarily safeguards as much as it is information sharing. Like, how much information do we want our management team to have access to?
Yeah. Right? And I think one of the lowest hanging fruit that we've seen, that it's just when we've taken measures with our clients to shift this, and that's like a really simple one, is being able to know the inventory cost on a sales person level. And that it's been interesting as we've seen some dealers, it's you watch just very blatant brooming that happens with sales teams, because they know the inventory cost. And, especially if they have anything associated, and we usually encourage dealers not to have bonuses attached to profit of a specific vehicle because of things like this.
Yeah. Too. And so you can go up and down the scale in terms of the team, from salespeople, frontline people, collectors, all the way up to
general managers, supervisors.
So all these things apply at these different levels in the hierarchy.
Good morning, George.
Yeah. Today we're the afternoon show.
And I forgot to say, Facebook user, thanks for saying we look great.
Yeah. Nice. Thank you.
Yeah. I showered today.
Oh yeah, me too. Yeah. We should do that regularly. So
we get compliments.
Yeah,
that's a good idea.
No, it's part of what happens obviously in our business, is that with and it's true of lots of businesses, of course, but we have some added problems or potential problems in our buy here, pay here space, because we have both the sales side and the collection side. We have inventory management, on and on. We have all these different departments to think about. But really, if you look at, as Michelle mentioned, the access to information, like the cost of the vehicle. And I shared before, we talked about this once before, and I shared, if I went to work as a salesperson at a dealership tomorrow, I would not want to know the cost. Like I would use I would be green and inexperienced, and I don't need to know the cost.
Well, and like one of the, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. One of the things that we saw in this specific scenario was not only brooming, but it's like, the down payment became more of an issue too, where it's like, oh man, we're too much into this car. We can't take $500 on it because we need to be able to cover more of our costs in the car or whatever. And that's not always that's more of a management decision than it is a salesperson decision. We were watching just a really interesting way of brooming customers, brooming a vehicle that they could get into, and all of that based on their visibility of that.
Yeah. So some of these things simply, what she's describing there, they simply complicate the sales process in that example. Like they're actually affecting the process and maybe our effectiveness as a team and our success and sales volume and those kind of things. But for today, I really wanted to focus more on the information, like the key management internal numbers that a dealer would need to know. And then we decide who else gets that information, who is on that need to know list. And so sometimes we have dealers, and this is why I say it's either do it than to undo it. We have dealers that are already sharing a lot of really sensitive information with, high level information with managers. And so how do you undo that? And really the question becomes, what is the basis for allowing that person to have that information? Why do they need to know that to do their job?
So a lot of foundational pieces of what we're talking about today can be seen on gaping hole episodes that we've done. And so these are things that when we first initially go into a dealership, we're like, okay, let's talk about gaping holes. And it's things like check writing authority, some of those things, software authority, that kind of stuff. And so if you want to get a lot more of foundational of what we talk about, I would go back to some of those episodes. I'll see if I can find links and drop them in these for our different social channels.
Playlist. We have an entire playlist of the BHPH Morning Show. You could search that playlist for gaping holes and probably find that episode.
It's really high value.
Yeah. And so the reason that's important is because a lot of what we teach there, and we just share this information freely. And keep in mind, a lot of our clients pay a lot of money to have us provide this kind of high level coaching. We're sharing it with you in the morning show. Why? Because it's just important to understand everybody's operation will be a little different. Exactly how you go about solving these problems would be different, but it's important to be mindful of these, and especially if you're a dealer listening and your business is pretty new. You're a 3-person team and you think ahead to what your business is going to look like in 2 or 3 years. Having this understanding going in so that you can plan out your organizational structure, plan out your internal controls, and make sure to protect yourself in ways that, and we talked about, I think in that same episode, this thing about dealers say, well, I trust my people, so I give them access to everything.
Oh,
that's not
really,
what we
really scary to
it's
hear.
Dangerous thing.
And you can ask when you go to a conference or you're at a dealer 20 group or when you're meeting with other dealers, you bring that up, you're probably going to find someone in that group that's going to say, that's what I thought.
Of course.
And it was the person that I trusted most.
Yeah.
That didn't have my best interest at heart for whatever situation that they were going through.
So what I would have said back then is, great. I love that you trust your team. Let's keep it that way. Let's keep it where you can trust them. Let's keep the safeguards in place so that they don't hang themselves with too much rope. And so that's the thing that and obviously as a dealer, you can find yourself hung in the same place. Like you can find yourself, you can suffer financially and operationally just because of some of these things that are avoidable. Like it's a matter of, it's not about trust. And sometimes this is about management style, but really, when we think about need to know basis, I'm really thinking in terms of when I say that email that I was going to send and share, who's going to see this report? This is like cash flow information, detailed, direct cash flow statements.
There were 2 questions that we kind of asked each other as we were talking this morning about it. It's like, why do they need to see it? I mean, it's like, why?
How does it
there needs to be a really good reason why they need to see it. And then the second is how or what vulnerabilities do you create by giving this person access?
And sometimes dealers don't know yet what vulnerabilities
and take I trust them away from the question. It's like, if let's say that this person were no longer there and I had the next person and that was taking their place and I might not have whatever it is, what vulnerabilities do I create by giving this position or person access to this information?
And I see that Amanda Sanchez has joined us. It's not surprising to me that this topic would be of interest to Amanda. Like she sees the same things that we see. For those who don't know, Amanda has a firm in Texas, and they have a very high focus on buy here, pay here.
Yeah.
And so they see the same things that we're talking about, especially in accounting and cash management standpoint. Then they see that. So among the things I see as a former dealer and somebody who's been inside operations where there either was embezzlement. Oh, I saw that.
Did you want to? I want to read it because there's a lot of people that listen to these syndicated.
True.
What Amanda said was 10% of people will steal. So, there's if given the opportunity, 10% of people will steal. 10% of people won't steal. The other 80% can go either way, depending on what their situations are. And Amanda speaks to this based on a lot of experience working with dealers. And so we're not just here today to talk about stealing. There's a lot of other stuff, but this is just one of the aspects about need to know.
Yeah. And so what Amanda's really referring to there is that 80% is can be opportunistic. When there's an opportunity and there's no limit, there's no security limit, there's no security control, there's no safeguard in place, then you're creating an opportunity for that 80% who could go either way. And so, yeah, that's absolutely right. These are among the things that we're trying to guard against. And so dealers sometimes think, well, if I put that security control in place, that means that's more that falls on me. Yes, this is your business and we're trying to protect it.
But we talked about that this morning, and I said, so what if a dealer wants to be more absent? And then what Jim brought up is that then have an outside person, someone that's not in the dealership day to day, that's handling those kind of things.
So let's be clear about this part. So let's talk about bank accounts. Let's just talk. So this is an example where it's, in my view, it's very important. This is speaking as a non-accountant, but as a former dealer and who's been inside, lots of dealerships. It's my experience that I would not want the same people who provide the reporting on cash accounts and performance reporting. I would not want that person to have authority to transact funds. So sign bank accounts,
view
authorize
funds
transfers,
maybe, but transact funds.
Yeah, view.
Funds.
So we're talking about rights, like, in your bank account now, you can set up viewing just like any Google document that we create. Some people can view, some people can edit, right? In your software, your DMS, some people can view, some people can perform the function. So these are the things we're really talking about today, is recognizing when I think about the cash management in particular. So there's actual cash and the flow of money, which is a vulnerability. There's also just performance, and we've seen it too, where you can lose a perfectly good manager because they get jaded because they have access to information. Now they have knowledge of information.
Yeah, it really is that when you have team members that can actually see what your cash flow is, what your bank accounts look like, those kind of things, that, it's that 80%. That it's like, well, I'm working really hard and I didn't get the bonus that I think I should have gotten based on what accounts are like, or based on, and so you open yourself up.
So you're a dealer, Michelle, and I work for you, and I see your bank accounts and I see there's lots of cash in the bank accounts. And I feel like, oh, well, this dealership makes a lot of money. I deserve a raise. I see your profit and loss reports. The dealer is doing really well, lots of profit. That manager may or may not understand the difference between paper profit and
cash
that
profit.
phantom profit. They may or may not understand. Well, let's say that it shows a loss. Now, if I'm an employee or manager, I think, man, this is sinking ship. I better get out of here. Like we don't, there's really not much good that can come from that, from having a manager have that information. Now, if you're a large operation, you got a seasoned manager, and you're talking about that can be a different scenario. But that person has to be educated, and they have to understand the global
and
picture.
And still have security controls.
Absolutely.
Because
they don't own the business.
They don't own the business. And anyone that doesn't own the business, I don't care how long they've been with you, they don't have your best interest at heart above everything else.
Yeah. And there's a human element to this that doesn't get talked about enough. We as dealers and as humans, we think people love us. People have our best interest at heart. And while they certainly may love you, the reality is we have to accept that there are people who will take advantage. And it's not about them loving you, liking you, any of that stuff. It's more about, just from a human perspective, we as dealers and as business owners, we ought to work to put the necessary safeguards in place to make sure that those limits are there.
And it's, people are human.
Yep.
And I remember I heard this thing a long time ago that said, given the right circumstances, anyone can do something it's given the right circumstances, because people are human.
Right.
I mean, if it's a matter of, I'm just completely spitballing this one, but like you don't have any money for groceries because you paid your bills and the kids are hungry and you don't know what to do, and you're working at a cash register and you're like, $20 would put milk and food on my table tonight. And it's the difference between I feed my family or I leave the 20, figure out a way to take the $20 to feed your people are human. And
and once that door's open, I've always said a person who will steal $20 will steal $20,000. Like it's once you cross that threshold, like there's not a lot of difference to them.
I would squirrel, kind of. it's more like a possum because it's related. That if you have an internal uh, understanding with your team members, that if they're going through something hard and they need help, to come talk to you. Because it's the same thing as you being a dealer in your buy here, pay your dealership. If you're having a hard time and you can't make ends meet for this or pay your pay or whatever it is, come and talk to me. Because I know most dealers out there, if they have team members that are in a really bad position, they would figure out how to help. And that's a totally different story than someone figuring out how to help themselves.
Yeah. So we can revisit this conversation again one day. We spent most of our time around cash management, but to me, there's just the whole thing about just reporting, like the actual performance of the business, like your net profit, your direct cash flow statements, and your performance in those areas. And does your general manager, first of all, does a person really need the title of general manager? Right? Is that really what their function is? And then does this person that you want to have access, what's the basis for giving them that information on cash flow statements and profit and loss reports and balance sheets? Because we didn't talk anything about debt and those kind of financial things. Like
it's like no one really needs to know what your my gosh, why can't I think of what it's called?
Well, your line of credit balance,
your line of credit, or your when you buy cars, someone else covers the
floor plan.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Floor plan.
That's why we're a team.
Right. Yeah. No one else really needs to know. All right. Well, there's very few people that would need to know that.
Right.
Where you're at with some of those different pieces.
Because you see the problem with going backwards on this. Once the person has that information, and now we want to take it away from them, that's problematic. It's like it raises questions, and it naturally can be deflating for the person who has had access to that information. So we feel like these are things better talked about, before that authority is granted. So whether we're talking bank accounts, access to reports, whatever, we just need to be thoughtful about that and recognize the vulnerabilities that we face in those key decisions.
And it's like I said, not just about theft, but it's about, a team member feeling stable in their job.
Sure.
There's just brooming customers.
Yeah.
There's so many reasons why we don't want to give more information than's needed.
Right. Absolutely. I don't have anything else on the subject for today. I think we covered it pretty well. I mean, that's really, you could spend all day going through all the different bullet points, but it's like the idea is, let's just be thoughtful about those decisions and recognize the impact of granting too much access. And I would rather see dealers start small and expand access than grant too much.
And so ask yourself those two questions. Why do they need to see this? How does it, is it a necessary thing for them to see in order to function in the role that you've given them? And then the second thing is, what vulnerabilities do I create by giving them access? And it's not just about stealing, but it's about, there's a lot of other things that could be a negative to giving people access.
And we didn't talk about pay plans, and we won't talk a lot about pay plans in this show, because obviously we have managers and others listening to the broadcast who, we don't want to get too specific about pay plans. It's one of those things that's difficult to talk about in a kind of a public environment.
Everybody has a different pay plan. Yeah. There's so many different things that people,
throw the question out on Facebook.
You're going to get every single answer is going to be different. Yeah. And so
everybody has their thing that they like and they feel like they want to motivate. I just think when you really think ahead to your organizational structure and who's going to be performing what duties and what information they really need to have access to, and what departments they will influence, like what areas they will, drive efficiency or whatever. So it's challenging. Like our business, I've said it, like pay plans and buy here, pay here are just difficult. They're tricky because there's a lot of different moving pieces, and until you get to a general manager position, people don't have the responsibility across all departments.
I'm going to do a pitch a little bit.
Okay.
We've helped a lot of dealers go through their pay plans and refine or shift as they, because pay plans a lot of times don't work from one template and also from one, you're shifting your business model, shifting, higher volume, shifting whatever, that, one doesn't typically, it's a pay plan it does one typically is not going to carry you through your entire business, especially if you anticipate growing or expanding or any of that kind of stuff. So if you need help,
obviously, if we can help you, let us know. You can throw our phone number up there. People mostly know how to find us. You can always, wherever you're catching this broadcast, you can message us on YouTube, Facebook, all the places you can get a message to us. So just know that if we can help, we're happy to. But today it was mostly about think ahead to, as your operation grows, then how do you get these things right? And I would say when you're faced with a decision, I would suggest you err on the side of less information for the person, more information retained by you, and you can start to grant a little bit of access as you go. But if you're not sure, I would say don't give the information, don't give the access. That unless you can clearly see that they need it to do their job well, then that's
why do they need to see?
Yeah, and it's also you can see where writing pay plans is problematic because when you start once you start to either compensate somebody on gross profit, net profit, whatever you're opening a door. And so just be aware of what lurks on the other side.
Yeah.
So,
anyway. All righty. Anything else?
No, I think that's it. Appreciate you folks tuning in.
Yeah. Wednesday, White Hat Wednesday. We'll have a good topic about how to be a better white hat dealer, which is a dealer that is known, liked, and trusted. The ultimate goal, known, liked, and trusted in your communities. Playing a long game and really want to see the success of their customers and their team at that point. So, all right. I hope you guys all have a great week. Happy Monday. And we will see you in just a couple of days. Have a great day. Thanks. Thanks, guys.